I, 28F, recently discovered a shocking truth about my father, David, 56M, that has turned my world upside down. Growing up in our small town, I always saw my dad as this pillar of the community, hardworking, honest, and dedicated to his family. He owned a successful construction company, Larson Builders, which he had built from the ground up after apprenticing with my grandfather. My childhood memories are filled with images of Dad coming home late, covered in dust and sweat, but always with a smile on his face. He'd give my mom, Tabitha, 54F, a kiss, ruffle my hair and my younger brother Williams, 24M, and then sit down to dinner with us, no matter how tired he was. We weren't rich, but we always had what we needed, and Dad made sure we never felt like we were missing out on anything. I remember how proud I was when Dad's company got the contract to build the new community center. I was about 10 at the time, and Dad took me and William to the construction site. He put little hard hats on our heads and showed us around, explaining how buildings were made. It was one of the happiest days of my childhood. As we grew older, Dad's business continued to thrive. He was able to send both William and me to college without any student loans, something he was incredibly proud of. Education is the best investment, he always said. I went off to study journalism, while William followed in Dad's footsteps and studied construction management. But last week, everything I thought I knew about my family was shattered. I was home for a visit, helping Mom clean out the attic. We were going through old boxes, laughing at embarrassing childhood photos and reminiscing about old times. That's when I found a dusty box tucked away in the corner, labeled important documents, do not discard. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it. Inside, I found court papers that made my blood run cold. According to these documents, when I was just 2 years old, my dad had been arrested for embezzlement. He had stolen over $500,000 from his own company over the course of 5 years. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My dad, the man who had taught me about honesty and integrity, had been stealing money? It didn't make any sense. The documents showed that he had narrowly avoided jail time by agreeing to pay back every cent he stole, plus interest. When I confronted my mom about it, she broke down in tears. She told me the whole story, and it was even worse than I had imagined. Apparently, shortly after I was born, Dad had started gambling. It started small, a few bets on football games, a night out at the casino when he was out of town for work. But it quickly spiraled out of control. Mom said she had no idea at first. Dad was good at hiding it, always making excuses for why money was tight or why he was working late. It wasn't until she found a stack of unpaid bills and overdue notices that she realized something was seriously wrong. By that point, Dad was in deep. He had massive gambling debts, and the loan sharks were starting to threaten him. That's when he started taking money from the company. At first, it was just small amounts that he planned to pay back quickly. But as his debts grew, so did the amounts he was stealing. It all came crashing down when one of Dad's employees noticed discrepancies in the books and reported it to the police. Dad was arrested, and our whole world fell apart. Mom said those were the darkest days of her life. She was left alone with 2 small children, facing the possibility of losing everything. In the end, Dad made a deal. He agreed to pay back everything he stole, plus interest, in exchange for avoiding jail time. He also had to attend rehab for his gambling addiction and regular counseling sessions. Mom told me that's why he worked such long hours all these years. He wasn't just providing for us, he was paying back his debt. I was stunned. All those years, all those memories of Dad working late, of him stressing about money even when the business seemed to be doing well, it all made sense now. But it also felt like my entire childhood had been built on a lie. Mom begged me not to tell William. She said Dad had worked so hard to turn his life around, to be the man we thought he was. She argued that bringing up the past would only cause more pain. She made me promise not to confront Dad about it, insisting that he had changed and that rehashing old wounds would do more harm than good. But I can't just pretend like I don't know this huge secret. It's eating me up inside. Every time I look at my dad now, all I can think about is the lies and the stealing. I find myself questioning everything. Was his pride in my accomplishments genuine, or just guilt? Was his insistence on honesty and hard work a way to make amends, or just hypocrisy? I'm torn about what to do. Part of me wants to confront Dad and demand answers. I want to know how he could risk everything like that, how he could lie to us for so long. Another part of me is scared to rock the boat and potentially tear our family apart. And then there's William. My brother idolizes Dad even more than I did. He followed in Dad's footsteps, studying construction management and now working for Dad's company. Finding this out could destroy him. But doesn't he have a right to know the truth about the man he's modeling his life after? I feel like I'm carrying the weight of this secret on my shoulders, and I don't know how long I can keep it up. Every family dinner, Every casual conversation with my parents now feels fake and strained. I catch myself analyzing every word my dad says, wondering if there are more lies hidden beneath the surface. The worst part is, I can see how hard my dad has worked to make amends. He's been a good father to us, always there when we needed him despite his long work hours. He put both me and William through college without any student loans. He's been a devoted husband to my mom. He's respected in the community, often donating his time and resources to local charities. But does all of that make up for what he did? I'm struggling with feelings of betrayal, not just from my dad but from my mom too. How could she keep this from us for so long? I understand wanting to protect us when we were kids, but we're adults now. Don't we deserve to know the truth about our family? I'm also grappling with guilt. Part of me feels like I should be grateful that my dad worked so hard to fix his mistakes and provide for us. But another part feels like that gratitude is misplaced because it was all built on a foundation of lies and stolen money. I don't know what to do. Should I confront my dad? Should I tell William? Should I just try to forget about it and move on like my mom wants me to? I feel like no matter what I choose, someone gets hurt. I could really use some advice on how to handle this situation. Update 1, it's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who offered advice and support. After much consideration, I decided to confront my dad about what I discovered. I invited him out for coffee at the local diner where we used to have our Saturday morning breakfast when I was a kid. As we sat down in our usual booth, I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew something was up. I took a deep breath and told him everything, how I found the documents, what Mom had told me, and how I was feeling about it all. As I spoke, I watched the color drain from his face. He looked older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. At first, Dad just sat there in silence, staring down at his coffee cup. Then he started to speak, and I saw a side of him I'd never seen before. He looked broken, defeated. He confirmed everything in the documents was true, and then he started to tell me the whole story. He talked about how scared and excited he was when I was born. He had always dreamed of being a father, but the reality of having a tiny human completely dependent on him was overwhelming. He felt immense pressure to provide, to give us the best of everything. That's when he started gambling. It started innocently enough, a Super Bowl bet with his buddies, a quick stop at the casino after a job out of town. He thought he could make some quick money to start a college fund for me. But as we all know, gambling rarely works out that way. He described how quickly things spiraled out of control. The more he lost, the more desperate he became to win it back. He started borrowing money, maxing out credit cards. When that wasn't enough, he turned to loan sharks. Dad's voice shook as he told me about the night a loan shark showed up at our house, threatening him in front of Mom. That was when he started taking money from the company. He convinced himself it was just temporary, that he'd pay it back as soon as he hit the big win that was surely just around the corner. But that win never came. Instead, the amounts he took got bigger and bigger. He was stealing from his employees, from clients who had paid in advance for jobs. He was robbing Peter to pay Paul, constantly juggling funds and cooking the books to cover his tracks. He told me about the day he was caught. One of his longtime employees, Jim, came to him with discrepancies he'd found in the books. Dad broke down and confessed everything to Jim. To Dad's surprise, Jim didn't go straight to the police. Instead, he gave Dad 24 hours to turn himself in, for the sake of our family. Dad said those 24 hours were the longest of his life. He seriously considered running away, even looked up flights to countries without extradition treaties. But in the end, he couldn't do it. He couldn't abandon us. So he turned himself in. He described the shame he felt, sitting in that police station, knowing he had let everyone down, his family, his employees, his father who had taught him the trade. He said the only thing that kept him going was the thought of making things right for us. What surprised me most was when he said he had wanted to tell us the truth many times over the years. But Mom had always insisted on keeping it a secret, afraid it would damage his relationship with us kids. He said he regretted giving in to her wishes, that he should have been honest from the start. Hearing all this, I felt a mix of emotions. I was still angry and hurt, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. Finally, the truth was out in the open. I asked him why he continued to work so hard even after the debt was paid off. He told me he felt like he could never truly make up for what he'd done, that he would spend the rest of his life trying to be the man we thought he was. He talked about how he threw himself into work and family, trying to be the best father and businessman he could be. He told me about the strict moral code he set for himself, how he refuses to even buy lottery tickets now, how he donates a significant portion of his income to gambling addiction support groups. At the end of our conversation, Dad broke down in tears. He begged for my forgiveness, saying he would understand if I couldn't give it. It was hard to see him like that, This man who had always been so strong in my eyes. I told him I needed time to process everything. I couldn't just forgive and forget right away, but I appreciated his honesty. We agreed to keep talking, to work on rebuilding our relationship with honesty as a foundation this time. When I got home, I called my mom. I told her about my conversation with Dad, and how I knew she had been the one insisting on keeping the secret. She tried to defend her actions, saying she was just trying to protect us. But I told her that by lying, she had only made things worse. Mom broke down then, admitting that she had been wrong. She told me how scared she had been back then, faced with the possibility of losing everything. She said she had convinced herself that keeping the secret was the only way to keep our family together. I'm still processing everything, but I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. The truth is out now, at least between me and my parents. But I still haven't told William, and that's the next big hurdle I need to face. I'm planning to talk to him this weekend. I'm nervous about how he'll react, but I know he deserves to know the truth. William has always been closer to Dad than I was, following in his footsteps in a way I never did. This revelation could hit him even harder than it hit me. I'm also worried about how this will affect William's position at Dad's company. He's been working there for a few years now, slowly working his way up. Will knowing the truth about Dad's past change how he feels about the business? As for me, I'm trying to figure out how to move forward. I love my parents, but I'm still angry about the lies. I'm proud of how hard Dad has worked to turn his life around, but I'm struggling to reconcile that with his past actions. I know it's going to take time to rebuild trust, but I'm committed to trying. We've agreed to start having regular family dinners where we can talk openly about our feelings. It's going to be uncomfortable at first, but I think it's necessary. I just hope our family can survive all these revelations. I'll update again after I talk to William. Wish me luck, I think I'm going to need it. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and things have been complicated. As I mentioned before, I decided to tell William the truth about our dad. I invited him over to my apartment, made his favorite lasagna, Mom's recipe, and sat him down to talk. To say William didn't take it well would be an understatement. At first, he didn't believe me. He accused me of making it all up, of being jealous of his relationship with Dad. It took showing him the actual documents for him to finally accept the truth. Once it sank in, William was furious. Not just at Dad, but at Mom and me too. He felt betrayed that I had known for weeks and didn't tell him immediately. He stormed out of my apartment, saying he needed time to think. For the next week, William wouldn't answer calls or texts from any of us. We were all worried sick about him. Mom was beside herself, convinced that we'd lost him for good. Dad wasn't much better, spending most of his time shut away in his home office. Finally, William reached out to me, asking to meet again. When we met at a local park, William looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he had a week's worth of stubble on his face. He told me he had been doing a lot of thinking, and he had made a decision. He said he couldn't forgive Dad for what he'd done, and he didn't want anything to do with him anymore. He had already quit his job at Dad's company and was planning to move out of state. I tried to reason with William, telling him about my conversation with Dad, how remorseful he was. But William wouldn't hear it. He said he felt like his whole life had been a lie, that everything he thought he knew about Dad was false. He couldn't trust Dad anymore, and he wasn't sure he could trust any of us. Things came to a head at a family dinner the following weekend. Mom had insisted we all get together to talk things out. It was tense from the moment we all sat down. The dining room that had once been filled with laughter and conversation was now silent except for the clinking of silverware. Dad tried to apologize to William, to explain himself, but William just sat there in stony silence, pushing food around his plate. Finally, William exploded. He started yelling at Dad, calling him a thief and a liar. He said he was ashamed to be his son, that he regretted following in his footsteps. Mom tried to intervene, but William turned on her too, saying she was just as guilty for keeping the secret. He accused her of manipulating us all these years, of caring more about keeping up appearances than about honesty. I tried to calm things down, but William turned on me next. He accused me of siding with our parents, of being okay with all the lies. In the heat of the moment, he said some pretty hurtful things, implying that I was complicit in the deception because I had kept the secret from him for weeks. The dinner ended with William storming out, saying he was done with all of us. He said he was going through with his plan to move out of state, and that we shouldn't try to contact him. We haven't heard from him since that night. His phone goes straight to voicemail, and his social media accounts have been deactivated. A few days ago, Mom drove by his apartment and saw a moving truck outside. It looks like he really is leaving. I'm worried about William, but I also understand his anger. This revelation has shaken him to his core, challenging everything he thought he knew about our family and about the father he idolized. He needs time to process it all, to figure out who he is outside of Dad's shadow. As for me, I'm trying to navigate this new reality of our family. Things are strained with my parents, especially my mom. I'm still angry at her for insisting on keeping this secret for so long. Every time she tries to defend her actions, it just makes me angrier. I know she thought she was protecting us, but I can't help feeling like she robbed us of the chance to deal with this as a family years ago. Dad is a mess. He's filled with guilt, not just about his past actions, but about how it's affecting our family now. He's talking about quitting his job, saying he doesn't deserve the success he's had. I've tried to talk him out of it, reminding him of all the people who depend on him for their livelihoods, but he's not listening. I feel stuck in the middle of all this. I'm trying to be understanding of everyone's feelings, but it's exhausting. I don't know how to fix this, or if it even can be fixed. Some days, I find myself wishing I had never found those documents in the attic. But then I remind myself that living in truth, no matter how painful, is better than living in a comfortable lie. Right now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm hoping that with time, we can all start to heal and maybe, eventually, find a way to be a family again. But I know it's going to be a long, difficult road. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. The situation with our family reached a breaking point, and we've all had to make some difficult decisions. William maintained his distance from the family for several weeks after the disastrous dinner. He went through with his plan to move out of state, taking a job with a construction company in Colorado. During this time, I kept reaching out to him, sending texts and emails, trying to be a supportive sister without pushing him too hard. Eventually, he started responding, and we began to rebuild our relationship, albeit slowly. About a month ago, William agreed to meet with me when I flew out to Colorado to see him. We spent a long weekend together, hiking in the mountains and talking through everything that had happened. During our talks, William opened up about how deeply hurt and betrayed he felt. He said he had always looked up to Dad, wanted to be just like him, and now he felt like he didn't even know who his father really was. William also shared that he was seeing a therapist to work through his feelings. He said being away from Larson and our family had given him some perspective. While he was still angry, he was starting to understand the complexity of the situation. Meanwhile, things at home had gotten worse before they got better. The strain of the situation was taking a toll on my parents' marriage. Mom blamed Dad for the family falling apart, while Dad resented Mom for insisting on keeping the secret all these years. They were barely speaking to each other, communicating through me when necessary. Dad, true to his word, ended up stepping down as CEO of his company, though he retained ownership. He said he couldn't continue in a position of trust when he had betrayed that trust so deeply in the past. He's been doing a lot of volunteer work, particularly with organizations that help people with gambling addictions. Mom threw herself into her garden and her book club, anything to keep busy and avoid dealing with the tension at home. I found myself in the uncomfortable position of being the family mediator, constantly going between my parents and William, trying to keep communication open and prevent things from getting worse. About a month ago, I suggested that we all try family counseling. To my surprise, everyone agreed, even William, who said he would participate via video call. We've had a few sessions now, and while it's been difficult, I think it's helping. We're learning to communicate better, to express our feelings without attacking each other. In our last session, Dad made a breakthrough. He finally admitted that his actions weren't just about providing for the family. He had enjoyed the thrill of gambling, of taking risks with the money, of living beyond his means. It was hard to hear, but I think it was an important step towards real honesty. William is slowly starting to come around. He's still hurt and angry, but he's willing to work on rebuilding his relationship with Dad. He's even talked about maybe coming home for a visit in a few months, though he's not ready to move back permanently. Mom has also been making efforts. She's admitted that her desire to protect us kids went too far, and that she should have pushed for honesty years ago. She and Dad are working on their relationship too, going to couples counseling in addition to our family sessions. As for me, I'm doing better. The weight of the secret is gone, and even though things are still difficult, I feel like we're moving in the direction of healing. I'm proud of my family for being willing to do the hard work of rebuilding trust. We still have a long way to go. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, and we all have a lot of hurt to work through. But for the first time in months, I feel hopeful about our future as a family. We're talking more openly, being more honest with each other, and I think that's the first step towards healing. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I'm committed to working on these relationships. If nothing else, this whole experience has taught me the value of honesty and the importance of facing problems head-on instead of trying to bury them. It's been a hard lesson, but I think in the end, it will make our family stronger.